Paul, thank you so much for joining us. First off, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the work that SAVE is doing on community-based adaptation.
Sure. I mean, climate change is quite a new area for Save the Children. Out of a ginormous organisation working across 120 countries, there are only a handful of us that are really 100% focused on this as an issue. So it's something that we're learning a lot about as we go. My role with SAVE in Australia and working with my colleagues around the world is to help Save the Children think about the implications of climate change for our core development programs in the areas that we work in, helping children to meet their capacities and their needs across a range of development sectors, all of which are susceptible to climate change impacts. So we look to integrate climate change risks and adaptation options and ideas across all of the work that we do. Sometimes we meet some resistance. People have, they're busy, they've got enough to do already, and this is kind of an additional sector that they don't really want to think about right now. People see climate change as a long-term issue, not as something they need to think about right now. So a big part of my role is helping to convince them that if they don't think about it now, it's going to cause huge problems down the track for the work that we're doing and the sustainability of it.
And what have been some of the big themes that you've picked up on at this conference?
So I've been really pleased to see a real convergence starting to emerge. There are people here from NGOs from all over the place, from government at all levels, from donor organizations and multilats, academics, and we all come from very different backgrounds and different approaches. We have different ways of seeing this issue, but the one thing I think we have in common is that we're all realizing that we need to work together and that we need to start to build the synergies between the different approaches and the different ways that we work at all of the levels in order to really kind of help communities understand and effectively engage with this issue in the long term. So that's my big takeaway at the moment.
And you talk about the need for synergies between these different organisations and groups. Communication is one of the big themes here, of course. To what extent do you think that's being successfully achieved already? Are these groups communicating effectively together?
I think more and more, but a lot of it is, I think, ad hoc and the results are a bit mixed. I think we really struggle with identifying points of commonality. We do, as I said, come from very different backgrounds, but it's a gatherings like these, I think, that when you get to be face to face with people and you really start to talk about issues, then you start to find that common ground, and hopefully then we all take it away with us, and we start to kind of think a bit differently about some of those organizations that we may have kind of had conflicts with in the past, or that we may work in a fundamentally different way. We need to think more about how our work impacts at the community level, regardless of the motivations behind it or the ways in which we work.
And so what are going to be the lessons that you draw from this conference, if you like, and the challenges that you look to overcome using those lessons back in your work?
Sure. So at SAVE, so my role is really to help the organisation think about the impacts of climate change on its work. And so what we've been doing is trying to integrate perceptions of climate risk and those sort of adaptation or no regrets options that we can take now to kind of safeguard those development gains. So for me, it tends to be an add-on to existing development projects and not a fundamental part of them. So the big takeout for me from here is that I really need to work a lot harder to help my colleagues see that it is actually something that they need to think about before they even start designing a development intervention, that it needs to be a core part of everything that we do, in the way that gender already is, in the way that we take a child-centered approach to everything that we do. We need to have in the back of our minds, what are the climate risks here? What are the potential benefits? What are the gaps? Where do we need to actually fill in those gaps, and how can we best do that through our development programming without necessarily creating parallel structures or separate projects working in the same place, funded by different donors or even the same donor sometimes. How do we actually overcome those barriers and kind of make climate change and development kind of more one rather than two separate things?
Paul, thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been really interesting.
Thanks so much.